Julie and her mother had been to Georgia visiting her sister. She had just gotten here, and since it was late at night, we asked Mom to stay too. You came in and said I was asleep and made some kind of weird noise. And she reached over to shake me to see if I was all right. She said, Drew. And I wasn't responding. And then she grabbed me and she felt my arm was real cold. And she started immediately doing CPR and told my mother-in-law, said, call 911.
Bystanders see a patient go into cardiac arrest about a third of the time. And if and when a patient is able to get some form of CPR, immediately it dramatically increases their chances of survival.
The first thing I did was scream for my mother, told her to call 911. And I ran over to the bed, and the first thing, I was just shaking him. I was, this kind of thing. I knew I had to do something and started CPR.
The majority of cardiac arrests occur at home, and so you're more likely to do CPR on a family member or a loved one than somebody you don't know out in the community.
And when you're giving CPR, you wonder, am I doing it hard enough? Am I in the right place?
Adrenaline just takes over.
It's very scary.
Of course, I don't remember any of that part, but I was going.
Compressions, you're actually manually pumping the heart, and that manual pumping keeps blood flow moving through the vessels to really important organs that are important for survival, like the heart itself, the brain, every part of the body.
The problem, he was in the bed, and you have a 218-pound man. I couldn't move him. It's dead weight. So in the bed, you do not want to do CPR. But when you have no choice, proactivity is better than no activity. So both my mother and I were giving it to him in the bed, so I'm just glad he sleeps on a firm mattress.
They both took turns doing CPR until the paramedics got here. And I was told later on, not only by the paramedics, but also by Dr. Ogunbayo, who's my cardiologist, that those two doing the CPR as they did is probably what saved my life.
I believe it was about 8 minutes, and it seemed like an eternity.
So imagine if he was not with any member of the family and he was down. Number one, no one would have been able to call the EMS. And those 8 minutes that she did CPR was 8 minutes of giving the brain and the other parts of his body some type of oxygen supply. Now imagine not having oxygen for 8 minutes. We probably, again, would not be having this conversation. So I cannot say enough how important it is for everyone that is in high school and beyond to get some form of training or certification in being able to do the basic CPR.
And she told me when the paramedics got here, she said they literally, it took 3 of them to grab me from the bed and literally throw me in the floor.
And I have to give them a lot of credit. There wasn't enough room to put him beside the bed. They had to get him down to the foot of the bed, and they grabbed him and just tossed him. They knew what they needed to do, and they got it done. They worked on him here for what seemed like an eternity. He was shocked several times here. Then they used the Lucas machine. They had him attached to that, and when he left out my door, he had no pulse. They tried to put stents in when they were at Frankfurt, but for whatever reason, I think he had a stent blocking where the stent needed to be, so they sent him to UK.
The partnership is great because it's like building a bridge where you would have had to swim or something like that, and the bridge takes you right from where you are to where you want to be. We have created a great network at the University of Kentucky such that every patient close to Lexington and around has a front row seat, rather, to great health care. A patient like Andy, when he had his event, we were able to call our colleagues over at the University of Kentucky, tell them what exactly was going on, give them firsthand information, and they knew exactly what we needed them to do. They were ready there, and the transition was seamless, it was smooth, and I think that was part of how and why Andy could be here today.
By the time we got there, they had him up in ICU, and he was in a complete coma. He was too weak to have any type of surgery. We didn't know very much. We just knew he'd had this massive heart attack. They had determined that he had the anoxic event. They said that he had a lot of damage to his thalamus. And as it was explained to me, that's responsible for consciousness, and that he may never regain consciousness. So after 2 weeks of him being non-responsive, we got with the family.
They basically told her more likely I'm going to be arrested. And she really didn't want to make that decision, so she got together with my mom and dad and younger brother, and that's when they decided to pull the plug.
They told me it would take, roughly an hour. It would be peaceful. It would be, after 4 hours, there was a little idea that could be his life now. His vitals were still good, but he wasn't waking up. So we came home to rest before going back up the next day. And at 4 a.m, I received the phone call.
And it's the nurse calling her from the hospital and said, Mrs. Combs. And she just knew it was him calling to let her know I was gone. And Miss Combs, you're not going to believe this, but he's awake and asking for you.
All I can remember is she saying, he's awake and he's asking for you.
14 hours after they pulled the plug, and
It was a miracle. It was an absolute miracle. I walked in and he recognized me immediately, but then he could associate my face and he could associate my name, but he didn't associate them together. So when he found out I was actually his wife, he was all excited that I was his wife. So
I looked at my dad and said, this is my wife? And he says, yeah, this is Julie, your wife. And I said, she's beautiful.
I think Julie played an integral role in making sure that Andy is still with us. The fact that she reacted promptly, herself and her mother were able to get onto EMS to get there while they were doing CPR, I think saved his life, really. He's very grateful, not just to the healthcare staff, but also his family that made sure they held the fort until EMS got there.